Today begins a compelling new series that takes you behind the closed doors of some of the world's most influential family-run enterprises. Welcome to Building Legacy, a series that goes beyond the boardrooms and balance sheets to uncover the personal dynamics, generational shifts, and business strategies that shape these legacy-driven organizations. In our premiere episode, we explore a powerful yet often underappreciated force in the Indian economy, family businesses, from creating jobs to driving innovation and anchoring entire communities. These enterprises are the backbone of many nations. Joining me in conversation and someone who's going to steer us through this series is Janmejaya Sinha. He's chairman of BCG India. And today, Mr. Sinha, so great to have you on, and I'm so glad that we're doing this show.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's so wonderful to actually pick up on family businesses who are so dominant in India, but so hidden.
Yeah.
So actually you're uncovering a really important truth. It's like the uncut diamond, you know.
Yeah. So before we start off, let me just set the stage of why we are doing this and what do we hope to achieve from this. Right now, family businesses are, by some estimates, contributing to nearly 70% of India's GDP. They are there in all levels, not just the very big legacy business names or family business names that we know, but in every corner. And this is hopefully a guide for them. This is also unpacking the dynamics of family businesses. So let me start with the core of why family businesses are, first of all, so underappreciated, sometimes seen as an archaic way of doing business, but yet are so important.
So if you really look at it, family businesses are not just important in India. If you look across the world, in Europe, family businesses are dominant. In Germany, you know, we all talk about the Mittelstand. In Asia, you talk about the Chaebols, earlier in Japan, the Keiretsus, then in India, the family businesses, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Philippines. So they are all over the world. Why have they not actually captured the attention in India in the same way? Because we were so poor when we were coming out of our poverty, everyone wanted to hide their wealth. So you didn't want to be so public about the fact that you were actually generating. But if you really look at it, about 320 out of our top 500 companies are family owned.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the thing. Family businesses, and if you speak to companies that are family owned, they will be very quick to say that yes, we are family owned, but we are professionally run. Is there a clear distinction between the two?
See, the term professionalization has often been misconstrued to say that the family will exit from the business and professionals will run it. Actually speaking, if the family runs the business in a professional manner, they are a professionally run company. And if the family is a conglomerate, then all the companies' CEOs are professionals. There are not so many family members. There's some families are large, but most of them are not. So you will have a couple of family members, you know, steering this group, but the companies would be run by CEOs. So in any case, you have, you know, individuals coming in into running those businesses. But the entrepreneurial spirit, you know, who took the risk? Who bet the capital? That's an important question. Not who is managing it, but who actually risked it. And those were normally family businesses. You know, some Superman entrepreneur at some point started the business and grew it against the odds. Okay, and then they actually started to grow, and then the next generation, and then you went on, and then there have been many changes. Because if I was to just give you a quick glance of the world, the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand have not really had this culture of family businesses. Yes, you have the Waltons, you know, and then you have the Pritzers, and you have the Koch brothers, etc. But most of them have not really built a culture of family businesses. In Europe, families have tried to stay together. In Asia, they have created conglomerates so that different children could get different businesses to run, so that they try and minimize conflict that way.
No, so interesting that you talk about Asia and India specifically. How closely aligned family businesses are with culture. It is almost as if driving force behind those family businesses, the principles also is part of the Indian culture, you know. I mean, don't want to be corny in the hum saath hai kind of a scene, but that's very much part of it, right? You work together, you grow together, you build together, and that, which is why willy-nilly by default, the family and then extended family become involved in the business.
So, you know, you go back in time when the guilds were there, etc. Those were all families, you know, and then the caste professions also kept them, you know, in a sense together. But the kirana store is a family business, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not getting paid. Why have the large retailers had a problem? Because they have to compete with a family where only, you know, individuals are not being paid that way. You know, I mean, it's a family enterprise. And then it keeps going up. See, the families initially always started with a Superman entrepreneur. And I'm not being politically incorrect, all of them were men.
Yeah.
You know? So these were Superman entrepreneurs who went against the odds. Everyone told them, don't do this, get a real job, etc. The only real jobs at that stage were in the government. You know, so most of the people, you know, were self-employed, or they could actually make their companies a bit bigger. And that's how it started. And then they couldn't employ very talented people who would join some, so the family members would support them, and one or two people would join them, and then those who stayed could grow with that business. Then as they got bigger, they started to get more talented people paying them more. But that's in a sense the history.
And that's the natural progression. You know, I just want to, so we'll talk about it in two parts. We'll talk about the modern functioning of a family business and then the historical impact. You've talked about it to some extent. You know, I think what's really underappreciated, as I mentioned in my opening comments, is the contribution of family businesses to the country as we see it today, and the might that they have brought in through our entire journey as a nation. Can you elaborate on that?
So, three elements. In the past, when infrastructure was missing, when you went to create a plant, do you know what you had to do? You had to create a township.
Yeah.
You had to build a school, you had to build a hospital, you had to build the apartments, because nothing existed. So you know, it's only in India that the whole township would come up around a plant, a cement plant, a steel plant. Jamshedpur grew up around, you know, Tata Steel, right? I mean, in that sense.
Yes, yes.
So that was the early part. Then if you come to a later part like now, what have they done? You know, during COVID, they did not sack people. You know, they employ people. They have actually built these enterprises. They invest the most back in their enterprises. You know, I mean, there are, I'll at some point differentiate between family businesses. There are the industrialists and the non-industrialists, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the industrialists were interested in building, all their wealth is in their industry. So they keep reinvesting. It's not like a, you know, a company professional who gets the money and invests in the stock market. These people invest in their business. Their greatest returns come from the growth of their business. So they are really committed to it.
Yeah, so today when we keep talking about where is the private capex, it is these family-run businesses and entrepreneurs who have that courage and vision and passion to actually put the money back in.
Correct, absolutely. And they have actually grown faster. They have had more profitability. They have been softer with their employees, and they have a longer time horizon. Because they think generationally, you know, what do I leave for my next generation? How do I build the business? How do I ensure that it can stay agile, that it can survive? Then, you know, I always say, 80% of the family businesses are industrialists, 20% are thieves, so let's forget about them. Then if you take the others of the industrialists, there are those who are energetic with enterprise, some are getting tired. That's, in the sense, the division, of what happens, and how you look at it. But unfortunately, those who have high market share in NPAs capture a lot of the attention. And, so to speak, sully this whole group, which are engines of growth for the country.
I think where the sullying comes, or where the question comes on family business, is the example of the Superman entrepreneur then coming and saying that I am different. In the world of the startup as well, I will hire professionals, I will have co-founders, I will have people who are like-minded, and my progeny does not get the first bid at taking this forward just because of shared genetics.
Tamanna, to be honest with you, you might find a little more of that with the startups, but with family businesses, originally, just go back a little bit. When there were no jobs, when you created a business, you created the business to create some wealth, and to give your family employment. So actually, the first question you should ask a family business is this to give jobs to your family? Is this to create wealth? Or is this to create an iconic company that is the best in the world? And at what stage, this is not as if it's stuck like that for life, at what stage do you shift from one to the other? Where did you start to provide jobs for the family, and then after that, you wanted to create an iconic company? Just think about it. If you are a listed company, you have to follow SEBI, Competition Commission, all the rules are laid out, a board of directors, what should its composition be, an audit committee, what will your accounts look like, how can you do an acquisition. But what rules are there to manage the family? Every family has its own rules. This is the biggest challenge for family businesses, how to manage themselves. What is fair? What is equitable? Because on one side there is family, unconditional love. On the other side there is a business, return on capital employed. And how do you bridge these two? How do you create the structure within which the family can show love and affection, but also allow this business enterprise to thrive? What are some of the challenges that happen? That's the complexity of a family business. One of the most iconic Indian leaders who told me that I will tell you this, but you can't quote me on this. So I get confused. He had once told me, running a business is easy. Running a family, any family, is hard. Running a family business is the hardest thing of all. Because of this complexity, where you have siblings, you have nephews, uncles, aunts, the whole complexity. And how do you actually allow that entrepreneurial energy to seep through and yet keep love and affection and fairness and equity running through?
Yeah, and also how to make that choice. You talked about the 3 stages of business. When you are at a growth stage, and one is, of course, you're carrying on and livelihood is on and you're providing jobs for everyone, and it's business as usual. It's enough to let you go by. But if you have a combination of ability and circumstance and you really blow up and you get bigger, then what do you do?
So, in fact, you are touching on the issue that many Superman entrepreneurs struggle with and find the hardest to do. When they start, what do they have? Either if they are alone, if they are 40 years old, their kids are not old enough to actually join the business. So they have a group, maybe a brother or a nephew or somebody, they start the business. Then there are initially some people who join them, who take a bet on them. Because they are not big, they are, it's a small, and then they grow. And then they reach a certain stage when the kind of talent that the business needs is not within all the people there. And that's when the Superman entrepreneur has to take the awful decision of actually sidelining some of the people who were there with them from the start and getting some of the others, and yet managing the culture and trying to avoid, organ rejection, because these new people are coming in with different aspirations and different needs. And the old who have been loyal and who have been there, how do you keep that running? Those are some of the biggest challenges that family businesses face.
Then the question is that how do you navigate those challenges? Let's come to modern day family businesses and those who want to grow. And across the spectrum, you talked about kirana stores. They could be mid-sized businesses, someone sitting with a great idea and seeing it beginning to expand. Now you need more hands in. Should you first go to your family members? Because at the end of the day, there's ability and then there's faith and there's trust. And both become equally important at some point.
Absolutely. Firstly, George Schultz had once said, trust is the coin of the realm. In business, one of the most important things you need is trust. So family members provide trust, which is a big deal, and so you can deal with lesser ability, but with not having fear that somebody is going to run off with all your money, right? I mean, it's one of those things. See, what happens? Most companies, people debate business issues. So do family businesses. In family businesses, there are two other constraints that come in. One is the hard issues around wealth. Because all your wealth of the family is in the business. Yeah. If there were 3 houses and there were 3 kids, each kid feels that they'll get 1 house. When there is one company and there are 3 kids, it becomes more complicated. And most families spend a lot of time trying to deal with the hard issues around wealth and succession and who gets what. And they have methods of dealing with business issues. They have not really understood the emotional issues, because from the top, the view is different than the one from the bottom. The parent or the patriarch feels all the kids are happy. The kids are the one who experience the unfairness and the fact that they are not that happy, that it's not fair, that they are not getting the right exposure. And some of them rightly and some of them wrongly. They can't be objective about their own competence. So how do you tell one child that you are incompetent and the other child that you are competent? Yeah, and then you stay in the same house and you don't have them sulking for the rest of their lives. I mean, it's a big issue.
No, I think a challenge also is for the original entrepreneur to assess competence and ability.
Yeah, but they don't always do a good job. You see, firstly, once you have a Superman entrepreneur, they tend to take a lot of the decisions themselves. And up to a certain level, that's great. It gives the business agility, the ability to react, and this great resilience that this person has keeps it running. So up to $1 billion or $2 billion of revenues, it's fine. You can take the key decisions, because these guys work 24/7, they're always working, so it's okay. It's at that level where they start getting constrained, and then they have to work these things out. And they trust themselves most of all. And there is a good reason for that. Because when they were building the business, everyone told them don't build the business.
Yeah.
And they had to trust themselves.
Their instincts have worked for them.
Yeah. And so whenever in doubt, they go back to their instinct. No, this is how I do it, and I have the courage. And then they have that, and then they have a group of people working with them who are order takers originally. And they work and they are close and they are loyal, and he looks after them, and so they are all connected. It's later that these issues become real. Right? And then how do you navigate? Now, they then have to do things which are unnatural for them. Get advice from others as to who will be the right successor, etc. But they know all, so there is a problem. But if they are decisive and they actually say, okay, so-and-so will succeed me, etc., at least it curbs uncertainty.
Have you, obviously you've had so much experience in this space. What has been one of the most difficult negotiations or conversations for you on the question of successor?
See, the first question is, I don't know any patriarch who really wants to retire. Very few. So this question of, retirement becomes about mortality, and it's very hard for anyone to raise it. How do you ask your dad? Everyone says, oh, you must take rest now. These guys don't want rest. They hate the thought of rest, Rest is death for them, Retirement is death for them. So how do they let go? There are some patriarchs who do, but the best way to think about it is for them to find a bigger, look at Bill Gates. I mean, not that they are a family business, but Bill Gates has found a bigger, he doesn't want to be remembered for Microsoft. He wants to be remembered for what he does in solving.
The world, world issues.
So some of them want to elevate like that, others don't. And so then you have to find things for them to do or create enough autonomy in the number of businesses that are being run by the next generation. And how do they then actually come into being? Or you can create some norms and rules that you have to retire at this age. And they have to impose it on themselves. At 65 we'll retire, at 70 we'll retire. And then they have to follow by example that we actually retire. And then they need to know what they're going to do then. Because no one really believes they are retired.
Apple to apple, a family business and a business where the original entrepreneur or Superman entrepreneur, as you've been calling it, doesn't choose to involve family but goes completely professional from day one. Because in modern day, those options now exist.
Absolutely. But they should discuss with the family. There are 3 models where the CEO, the owner and the manager are family member. Or the family could sit on the board. Now you look at Pidilite, the family, or Asian Paints. The family sits on the board, but others run it. You can have other companies, many of them, where the family is both owning and running it. And then there are those places where the family is actually exited. And their holding in that company is wealth. And they are investing in other places too. So those are choices. And who should make them? The family. They should sit together and discuss. The next generation should say whether or not they want it. And then there is the other issue. What if some of the next generation want it and the others don't? How do you work out equitable situations? What does the patriarch want to do? Does the patriarch believe that the next generation is capable?
There was a comment recently which raised the question about what the next generation is doing. And it was a bit of a lament as well, saying that the next generation is only interested in running family offices, not working hard and growing the business. That could be a situation many people are facing.
There are so many people that everyone is facing a different situation. There are some who are facing that situation. There are somewhere in the next generation, they're getting frustrated by the patriarch who are conservative and who don't want to take any risk and who are tired and who just want to preserve wealth. Because you think about it, there is creation of wealth, there is preservation of wealth, and there is destruction of wealth. And all of the underlying this is what? Risk-taking. Now, who is willing to take how much risk and how much capability do they have to manage that risk? And the other family members have to align on this. That I need to, supposing we are in the same family, you're my daughter, you want to take a risk. Now, I have to say, how much money can she blow up? And we don't destroy all the wealth, So those are some of the tensions which are there. And these are reasonable problems. Reasonable people can reasonably arrive at some of these problems.
Is it important to have external guidance to solve some of these issues?
Look, I think it depends on the nature of the people. How open, how do they think? Most of the family businesses that I have met with, when I was writing the book, the people I was interviewing, about 75% of them had some external help, either the person they trusted or an uncle or somebody outside or, a person who understands family businesses, advisors, consultants, investment bankers, the whole group. But they can only pick people they trust.
Which model do you think has the most chances of success, or does it depend as per sector? A family-run business or a complete collection of, say, professionals helmed by one founder?
Look, the only place that I would, there's one block, which let me put aside. There is a block on technology, which I don't know, the AI, etc., whether you need the top specialist in that area, and the family may not have it.
Yeah.
But other than that, whether it's a family-owned business or run by professionals, I have found that family businesses are more agile, they take decisions faster, and they have the ability to take on risk. A private listed company or an MNC, they have too many processes. They become bureaucratic. Sometimes I joke, the difference between an MNC and a public sector is the quality of the suits. Because they are both have to go through all those processes.
All those processes as well. This has been fascinating. We're going to have to wrap up episode 1 here, but stay tuned because this promises to be a completely different kind of a series where we look at a subject which is all around us, is thriving, but no one has really talked about in such details. Thank you so much, Janmejaya Sinha.
Thank you, Tamanna.